Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Higher Education Tableau User Group meeting for September 19th, 2023. We're excited to have you all here today. Today, we're going to have a few announcements. We're going to open the Zoom floor for announcements, and then we're going to have Meet a Community Member with Pete Benbow from Davidson, followed by Tips and Tricks with Regina Gonzales from TAMUCC, and I'm not even going to try and remember all the words in that. Finally, we'll have a presentation by Kevin Wee about using Figma and Tableau before we wrap up and chat in our breakout rooms. So with that being said, does anyone have any announcements? You are free to come off mute. Let us know what's going on. If there are any open positions that you want to share, you can pop those in the chat or put them on our Slack channel. All right, no announcements? All right, then I guess we will move right in. I guess we have one announcement or two. We have two new TUGs that we'd like to share with you. We have a Tableau public TUG. I believe their first meeting is next week. And then we have the DataFam Career Pathmakers TUG. And this is for anyone who is looking for support or mentorship, networking for data professionals. If you are, trying to change positions, if you're looking for a new job, looking for a new role, a new industry, this is a great group. They're just kind of getting off the ground. So we just wanted to share those resources with you.
And one of the co-leads for the Tableau Public TUG, Preeti Lodha from UMass President's Office, the University of Massachusetts President's Office, is going to be our Meet a Community member next October, and she'll tell us a little bit more about that TUG at that meeting.
Fantastic. Okay, so one little disclaimer before we move into our Meet a Community member. You may have noticed that we are featuring a community member who has experience with both Tableau and Power BI, and we do believe that working collaboratively yields the best outcomes, especially in higher ed. We know all about that. And our intention in including this speaker is to help higher ed professionals continue to collaborate and learn more about other tools that relate to the visual analytics space. So that's why from time to time, you might see non-Tableau topics like Figma or introducing the Power BI user group at HETUG meetings. So we just wanted to go ahead and smooth that over before we introduce Pete Benbow, our Meet a Community member for the month of September. So Pete, welcome. And I would just like to give a brief introduction before we start the interview. Pete Benbow is the manager of data operations at Davidson College, which is just down the road from me. His work focuses primarily on Microsoft technologies, particularly SQL Server for data warehousing and data engineering, Power BI for data modeling and visualization, and Azure DevOps for application lifecycle management. So he's also worked professionally with Tableau and Looker. Regardless of the tools or the technology, Pete is very passionate about using data to build cool stuff. And I think we can all agree with that. Before coming to Davidson, Pete was a director of research and analytics at the Garrison Resolution Group, where he led business intelligence and digital transformation projects. His work included financial modeling and data analysis for the National Football League's concussion settlement and the Deepwater Horizon oil spill medical benefits settlement. He earned a BA in political science from Davidson and is a Microsoft certified trainer. He is also starting the Power BI Higher Ed User Group, which is meeting for the first time next week. Am I correct?
Tomorrow, actually.
Tomorrow, not even next week. All right, so we are just going to ask you a few questions about yourself, and then we're going to have a lightning round, as we traditionally do. So just start by telling us a little about yourself and your role and your team.
Yeah, I've worked at Davidson College for 6 years as of yesterday. I've been working in data analytics for about 11 years. As you mentioned, the first part of my career was in kind of the corporate world, as I like to call it. I was in the corporate world, where I worked on the NFL and Deepwater Horizon settlements and did a lot of other cool stuff too. My role at Davidson is manager of data operations. I have a very small team of developers where we focus on data engineering, by which I mean data warehousing, database development and administration, as well as data integrations with Snap Logic and various other things. And then you probably picked up on, Davidson is currently a Power BI school, but I also have experience professionally as a Tableau developer. When I worked at Garrettson Resolution Group, I actually brought Tableau to the company in 2013, and we used it for a few years until I left. And then I've also used Tableau just in the last couple of years as a consultant. So very happy to be here at the Tableau user group and making this connection with you all.
We're excited to have you too. And I'm just going to throw in another personal question I have that wasn't on the list, but you don't really meet a lot of people who go from corporate into higher ed. How did you make that transition?
Well, if I'm allowed to be vulnerable for a moment, it basically, I had a little bit of a mental health crisis in 2016, or I guess it was 2017. I can't remember exactly when it was, but I had transitioned out of doing analytics and I had moved into a product management role, and it put me into a position I didn't like being in. There were a lot of stressors. The product was failing. And I ended up kind of having a moment where I just needed to get out of what I was doing. And at that moment, Davidson, just like a beam of light coming from the heavens, they posted a job for a business intelligence developer, which is what I had been doing for the past 4 or 5 years. And being an alumnus of Davidson and being a developer and wanting to get back closer to the technology, I applied for the job and took it. I was happy to take a 25% pay cut just to get back to doing what I love doing, which is building cool stuff with data.
I don't blame you one bit. And working for your alma mater, what a dream.
Yeah, right.
Mm-hmm. All right, so back to the standard questions. What type of data do you work with?
All kinds. Seriously, all kinds. I'm in central IT at Davidson, which means I'm responsible for a lot of reporting around finance, human resources, sometimes academic data. Sometimes we're very lucky to have some very skilled technologists embedded in our human resources and academic affairs groups. Finance doesn't have anyone necessarily with that skill set, but they have a lot of great Excel wizards over in their team. So I find myself getting to dabble in all kinds of data over at Davidson. I've gotten to work with some athletics data as well, analyzing like basketball team shot data, and not as much college relations and donation data because they have their own little data analyst shop over there. But one of the things I really love about working in higher education is the fact that I can get exposed to so many kinds of data and different ways of consuming that data as well. Oracle databases, SQL Server databases, REST APIs. So it's very rare that you find an organization where you get to work with that much diversity in your data sources.
Definitely. So the next question, I'm going to tweak a little. It's about how you use Tableau at work. I realize you don't necessarily use it in your current job. So how have you used Tableau at work?
So at Garrettson, we used it sort of to do executive level dashboards. We were kind of put off by how expensive Tableau was. And so we kind of limited our scope to just some dashboards for my boss, who was obsessed with data and dashboards. And so Tableau was our little playground to build interesting stuff for him. And it was a great experience because you can build really beautiful stuff in Tableau. And that was great because back at the time, this was 2013, Tableau was the product. I mean, there was nothing else that did what Tableau did back in that time. So we used it and it was extremely popular with our executives. Most recently, when I worked with Tableau as a consultant, this was a side gig that I did a couple years ago during the pandemic, but that same boss who managed me when I was director of research and analytics, he left the company with another colleague of mine and started their own startup here in the Charlotte area. And they contracted me to come build dashboards for them in Tableau. And they were doing a lot of the same stuff that we were doing at the time, which was they were working on these big class action and mass tort settlement programs. And since I already had experience working with that kind of data and I had experience with Tableau, they brought me in to build those kinds of dashboards. So I was building basically dashboards that helped them understand the case flow for all these different law firms that they had hired them to use their platform. So it's primarily my Tableau experience has been in that context, but I've also done some kind of personal side projects with it because I believe it's very important. Our little industry of BI and analytics, there are a lot of players. The two biggest ones I would say are arguably Power BI and Tableau, and I believe that it's very important to be, let's say, ambidextrous, to have good skills in multiple platforms. So I try to flex my muscles with Tableau every now and then just so I can stay up to date on everything that's going on in that platform because, you never know when you might be asked to use it.
That's true, and it's changing so fast all the time. So do you have a favorite Tableau project that you've worked on?
Not off the top of my head. The Tableau work that I did when I was a consultant a couple years ago, they actually ended up ditching Tableau and going over to Looker, which is Google's data viz platform. They decided that it fitted their purpose, that it fit their purpose a little bit better. And so that Tableau project did not have a very long lifespan. But I have seen other Tableau projects from others in the community, and these are things like interactive fact files that institutional research shops have done that are super impressive. And I've gotten a lot of inspiration from some Tableau dashboards that I've seen out there. I've taken Power BI projects of mine and worked really hard to make them look and function like some certain Tableau dashboards out there because there are some really, really excellent ones.
That's a good project. We did that at Analytics Day this year. So you touched on this a little bit, but how long have you been using Tableau and how did you learn how to use it?
I've been using it ever since 2013, sporadically, using it a lot more back then and using it a lot more when I was a consultant. But since then, it's just kind of been sporadic personal projects. And I learned primarily just by the way I do most of my learning, which is I'm self-taught. I went in there and just connected to a data source and tried to figure out, okay, how do I prepare the data? How do I create measures? How do I create specific visualizations? And you learn little interesting hacks here and there. Like, they wanted, my friends wanted me to create a lollipop chart, basically. If you're not familiar with lollipop charts, it's exactly what it sounds like. It's basically a column chart or a bar chart that kind of looks like a lollipop because it's got a little round thing on the end. And I figured out some hacks to do that in Tableau. Just kind of learn by doing. I'm a big advocate of learning by doing.
To agree with you there. So we know you're setting up a higher education Power BI user group. So clearly you're using Power BI. Do you have a preference between Tableau and Power BI? And what would you prefer doing in Tableau rather than Power BI?
What I always tell people is that, I hope I don't offend anyone with these comments based on the disclaimer at the start of the meeting. I've generally found that Tableau is much better for data visualization. It is very easy to build gorgeous data visualizations in Tableau. You can do it in Power BI too. I think it takes more work and you have to make more compromises. And I think that overall, I do prefer Power BI because I believe that Power BI is a bit better on the data preparation and data modeling side of things. But I have to always give it up to Tableau on the data visualization side. And a lot of that comes down to the fact that Power BI has always been kind of a weird product. It was formed out of so many different sort of balkanized products at Microsoft, and they just kind of like lashed them together with duct tape and released it in 2015. And it's gotten better since then. It's become a much more cohesive and mature platform. But initially at first, if you had asked me up until about the year 2018 whether I preferred Power BI or Tableau, I would have told you Tableau, that I preferred it. I think 2018 forward, with all the maturity that Power BI has gained since then, I would prefer Power BI. But then again, Power BI is my expertise. I teach a Power BI course on edX. So, I get paid to teach Power BI. But you have to recognize the strengths of both platforms.
I completely understand that. A friend of mine who uses both said that they're require a different way of thinking for when you're using each one.
Absolutely.
All right, so back to our standard questions. What is your favorite Tableau feature?
The most interesting one that I looked at recently was the data interpreter feature. Being able to kind of use that AI powered goodness to look at a spreadsheet of data and detect things like headers, footnotes, things that might not actually be the row and column data that you're interested in. I think that's a great feature. It's one thing that Power BI lacks, and could definitely be great for ingesting some of that more ad hoc data, that spreadsheet data that you tend to see at higher ed institutions, where everyone's maintaining all of these spread marts in their various data silos. That kind of feature, very powerful.
What is something you would like to learn more about in the field of data visualization?
I've never really gotten the chance to dive into kind of the machine learning aspects of data visualization and analytics in general. I've always been much more focused on the back end side of things. So data modeling, data warehousing. And I've not had the opportunity to really explore using things like R and Python to run ML models against the data to generate certain outcomes. I do know R and I do know Python, but I've not really gotten the chance to sink my teeth into that. And I would really just love 6 months to a year where no one bothered me and I could just focus on that stuff for a little bit. But that's not what life is like when you're the higher ed IT data guy at a small school like Davidson. So I'll find my moments eventually.
I think we'd all like 6 months just to learn anything we wanted. That would be great. What is one thing that you wish you could go back in time and tell newbie you when you first started learning Tableau?
Interesting question. Be patient. Learning any new technology takes time. And also ask questions and do more research. Because I think that sometimes when you're a self-teacher like myself, you start teaching yourself a platform or a product, and you may unwittingly pick up bad habits, and you'll then use those bad habits for years until you go to a conference or you watch somebody's webinar or you read a book. So I think it's very important to do a lot of research, be open-minded, and yes, be patient and accept that, just because you've built this great thing with Tableau or Power BI or whatever, that doesn't mean you're done yet. Study the best practices and continue to evolve that product until, you've really gotten it to where it ought to be.
Such good advice. Well, is there anything else you'd like to share before we start the lightning round?
Sure. If anyone is interested, we talked about the collaboration aspect in the disclaimer. I'm going to be planning on presenting at the AIR Forum in Denver next May. I had a really good time at the AIR Forum in Cleveland this past year. If anyone is interested in collaborating on a talk with me, maybe it's like a Power BI versus Tableau head-to-head kind of thing, or a bake-off, I don't care, as long as it's, as long as it's a mutually beneficial thing. If anyone's interested, please contact me. I can put my email address in the chat. And I would love to would love to collaborate with someone, especially other institutions and other products. I did mention earlier that I am I'm an instructor on edX.org. If you're not familiar with edX, it's a kind of a consortium of different schools. I guess it got bought by 2U a couple years ago, but it's a lot of schools like MIT, Harvard, Davidson, and others. Online courses taught by staff and faculty from those colleges. If you're interested in learning more about Power BI, I do teach a Power BI course on edX. It's got about 130,000 people enrolled since 2020. So it's been pretty popular. Check it out if you'd like. We actually are just launching the newest version of that course today at 4 p.m. It's been about 8 months since we started work on that course, and it launches today. So I'm very happy about that. The last thing I'll say is the Higher Education Power BI User Group is having our inaugural meeting tomorrow at 1 p.m. If you are interested in joining the Higher Ed Power BI User Group, if you just want to come to the first meeting and see what we're about, I'm going to be giving a talk with my colleague, Laura Boyles, who is in the institutional research shop here at Davidson. We are going to be just kind of doing this little quick inaugural meeting and trying to gauge what interest is out there. We've got over 100 people signed up for the first meeting, which is great. We'd love to have more. We'd love to have some Tableau folks over there as well. So, the link's in the chat window. So please reach out to me. And lightning round, go for it.
I will say I'm signed up for the meeting tomorrow, and even though I'm a Tableau user and have never used Power BI, I always look for inspiration in a lot of different areas. And I think that other dashboards, still offer inspiration, even if they're built in a different platform. All right, so we are going to start the lightning round. So today is National Voter Registration Day. And we'd like to know, what was the first election you ever voted in?
The presidential election between John Kerry and George W. Bush in 2004.
Bravo. Not to age you or anything,
Yeah.
You might have answered, your high school student government for all I know, but.
I don't think I voted in those.
All right. As you may have noticed in the music, today is National Talk Like a Pirate Day. What's your favorite pirate slang word?
Grog. Love a good grog.
And next up, we are celebrating National Cheeseburger Day. It was actually yesterday. So what is your favorite cheese to put on a cheeseburger?
Gouda.
Oh, now that's unique.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a very traditional cheddar girl myself. And National Chai Day is on September 21st. How do you take your chai, if you drink chai, that is?
I don't really drink chai. I take it hot, I guess. That's about all I can tell you.
Understand. I take mine with a shot of espresso.
Oh, there you go.
All right, Telegraph Pole Appreciation Day. Yes, there really is a day for everything. I guess that's today. Do you know how to communicate anything in Morse code?
Just SOS, and that's only because I watch a lot of movies.
Well, I guess that might be the most important thing to know.
Yep. If you're going to know some Morse code, that's the one you want to know.
In case you end up on a rogue spaceship or ship out in the middle of nowhere. All right, so it is National Bourbon Month. What is your favorite bourbon or bourbon distillery?
Oh, I love this question. So, fair thing. First of all, I am more of a Scotch drinker than a bourbon drinker.
Fair.
However, Scotch would not exist without bourbon because Scotch has to be aged in bourbon barrels. So, little known fact for anyone. However, I do happen to have my favorite bourbon right here next to me. This is Blanton's. Hopefully you can see that. It's a fresh Blanton's that I have not opened yet, but I might open it soon now that fall is here. But but yeah, more of a Scotch drinker. It's a little known fact that bourbon barrels by law can only be used once to make bourbon. So what they do is they ship the bourbon barrels over to Scotland to be used for aging Scotch whiskey. And so you would not have Scotch whiskey without bourbon barrels, the modern version of Scotch whiskey. So I also have, to that point, a bottle of Lagavulin, which is my favorite Scotch distillery. And my wife and I just spent our 6-year anniversary on Isle of Skye this past September. We just stayed there for a whole week and went around to the distilleries, Talisker and Torabhaig, and drank lots of single malt Scotch, and it was wonderful. And I want to go back.
That sounds
So
amazing.
for the Tableau folks on the line, what we're hearing is that Power BI causes people to drink. Just trying to balance your love of Power BI.
Well, what I took away from that was that you're obviously working from home and you're not at work with a virtual background.
Yeah, that's true. I don't get away with this at the office.
No. All right, next up, it is National Honey Month as well. Do you have a favorite kind of honey?
I don't. I hear really good things about leatherwood honey, though. I was actually just watching a YouTube video yesterday about leatherwood honey. So sounds good. Problem is, it's like $25 a jar, so I'm not sure that I'll have any anytime soon. Although, if I spend the amount of money that I spend on Scotch and bourbon, maybe I can't complain about spending $25 on some honey. So, anyway.
I've never heard of leatherwood honey, but that sounds intriguing.
Yeah, I think it comes from Australia.
Okay. All right, and then our last lightning round question of the day. It is National Yoga Month. Do you have a favorite yoga position?
The only one I know, which is child's pose. Well, it's not the only one I know, but I like doing child's pose because I've had some lower back injuries in the past, and that one's really good for kind of stretching out the lower back and relaxing before you go to bed at night. So,
have to agree. Well, that wraps us up for today. Thank you so much, Pete, for being a good sport and for being our Meet a Community member this month.
Thanks very much for having me.
And we'll see you tomorrow.
Yeah.
All right, I will turn it over to Andrew to introduce our next speaker.
Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. It is my pleasure to introduce Regina Gonzales, who is a senior data analyst with a decade of experience specializing in reporting and data analysis. Currently, she plays a vital role in the university, leveraging her expertise to create impactful dashboards that drive data-informed decision-making. Regina holds a BA and an MBA from Texas A&M University Corpus Christi and has been with the university for 4 years. Alongside her professional achievements, she cherishes her role as a loving mother to her amazing daughter and shares her home with 4 pets. With her analytical prowess and commitment to data-driven strategies, Regina continues to make a significant impact in the field of data analysis. Today, Regina is going to be providing a presentation on leveraging Tableau's actions to create reset buttons for complex dashboards with multiple filters. Discover how actions offer interactivity and dynamic control, enabling users to effortlessly reset filters to their default settings. We'll learn step-by-step implementation techniques and unlock the benefits of incorporating reset buttons, including improved user experience and enhanced data exploration efficiency. This will give an opportunity to master the art of dashboard resets using Tableau's actions. So with that, I will turn it over to Regina, and her links will be in the chat momentarily.
Thank you so much. Okay, let me. Okay, can everybody see my screen?
Sure can.
Perfect. Thank you so much for that introduction. Again, I'm Regina Gonzales, and I am a senior data analyst with Texas A&M Corpus Christi. Disclaimer, I will say I apologize. I made a small error on my description. So today we will be talking about dashboard actions and how to use those to leverage a reset button for multiple filters across your dashboard. So here's our agenda. Just a quick introduction about myself, why a reset button, some prerequisites, design button, and best practices. We'll walk through a quick demo, and then I have time for questions and answer session. So here we go. A little bit about me. I have been with the Texas A&M for about 4.5 years. And in my time there, I have primarily been using Tableau, and we have been using it to communicate our data to our campus community. We are a fairly new office, so it's been important for us to get the word out and share our data. Our office is institutional research, planning, and analytics, and we primarily deal with the state and federal reporting for the institution. That is the data that I use to leverage for my dashboards, and have been working again for about 4 years to get the word across. So my mission is to empower our leadership and campus community with actionable data insights to enhance the student experience. I will say this past year, one of my highlights has been attending the Tableau conference. I enjoyed getting to know other data enthusiasts and was able to learn and get a lot of the help and expertise from the session. So I really enjoy that and highly recommend it. So why a reset button? Well, there's, I think, several reasons for it. As users dive deep into your data, the interactivity of using multiple filters sometimes is an easy way for them to search that data and kind of find what they're looking for. However, it can be frustrating to have to go back and maybe individually reset those filters every time they're wanting to look for a new aspect or a new insight. I recently was having to build some dashboards that will be used for an assessment. And as I was actually validating my dashboards, the need to reset them easily and quickly is really kind of what spurred this whole action. So I believe the reset button ensures that, we can quickly revert to that original view and help those users get on with data analysis. Couple prerequisites. We want to make sure that you're kind of familiar with the Tableau user interface. I will be going through this, but fairly quickly, so it helps to have a grasp of understanding the at least basic uses or the basic interface of Tableau. Also, make sure you want to check your version, and that ensures that these features are available. And then you want to make sure you have a clear objective and design view. So in Tableau, I have found that the button design can either be symbolic, it can use an icon, or it can just be text. And for the majority of our dashboards, just so that everything is standardized and uniform, we go with a text version. Some of your best practices involve making sure that your button is in a prominent place. You want your users to maybe understand exactly what that button is for, where it can be found, and it should be easily accessible. Also, I highly recommend testing your buttons from a user perspective, making sure that they are acting the way they should and filtering appropriately. This makes sure you get an optimal experience. So I'd like to go into our demo. And here I've built a mock dashboard up front, this data is using iPad's mock data set that I somewhat altered just for the purposes of building this dashboard out for you. So as you can see here, I've started a new sheet and I've opened a new calculation. And all I'm going to pop in there is reset all. I'm going to save it and make sure that I've named it appropriately. And then I'm going to move it to the text card on the marks. As I can see, it has popped in. But now I'm going to change it so that the mark is square. I'm going to go ahead and size it up. And then I will select entire view. I'm going to fix my label. I'd like to center it and then perhaps make it a little bit bigger and a little bit bolder so that it's easier to read. From here, I'm also going to want to reset the color. And then that looks good. The only thing is I'm going to want to make sure my tooltip here, I utilize it to say click here to, I'm sorry, not click here. Click to reset all filters. So this is just another visual cue to my user on what this button is for and what it will do. And then I'm going to make sure I name my sheets correctly. So this is helpful, especially if you're going to be using a dashboard that has multiple sheets in which you're going to want these filters to reset. Back to our dashboard. I am Team Floater, just so you know. I find it to be, for our use, much more flexible. I do every now and then use the tiled, but I like to be able to float these in and size them appropriately so that they fit just how I need them. So now I'm going to go ahead and just maybe throw a border on here again so it pops out and it's kind of prominent. So I have it, and here are all my filters, but now I need to connect it. So these are where the actions come in place. So I'm going to go to Dashboard, select Actions, and then I'm going to select for this sheet. And as you can see, there are no actions for this sheet. Just so that I can keep everything clear, I will give it a good name so that it clearly indicates what this filter does. And I like to be able to tie it back to the sheet that I will be using it for. My source sheet is going to be the reset button, and I want it to use it on a select. And my target sheet is going to be my chart. And I want it to show all the values. Next, I'm going to go ahead and add all of the filters. I don't want to use the feature all fields. I personally have never used it. I like to go ahead and just add the fields that are necessary. So I will do that really quickly. And I will just kind of go through the 9 filters and add them one by one. So as we're adding each of these, I said this was built out of necessity, simply because as I was validating, it was tiresome to have to go back and try to remember to clear all of the filters. And then every now and then, especially when I have a ton, you can miss a few and then trying to wonder why my data wasn't looking correctly. So we're just about finished here. Institutional type. I will kind of look at it. They're all there. And I will hit OK. So let's test and make a little assumption and see. I'm going to filter for just bachelor's degrees and master's degrees. And then I'm going to look for the college that is just of the College of LORTA, Allison, and then S. Maybe we only want to look at states that are everything but an N or an N. So next, we may only want to look at I believe, public institutions. Lastly, whether or not it is a two-year college. And there we go. Our filters are complete. So just a really, again, easy way to get you back to your starting point and really help your users focus on what's most important. Are there any questions?
So we had one about how this is different from just simply clicking the revert button on like Tableau Server or Tableau Cloud. Do you have any, like, is there a reason why you went the button route over just telling people go click this existing?
I will say, at least for our institution, your back button isn't always. What ends up happening, especially if our network is slow, is you're clicking back and you're hitting back more than once or more than twice, which even forces you out of your dashboard. So just being able to make sure that you stay in one place, you're not having to interfere with making sure that you're within the correct window. I know I often, when I'm looking at dashboards, I have multiple dashboards open. It's easy to, instead of hitting back, to hit close. So again, just having that functionality within your board. Also, depending on maybe I don't want to just, as I'm exploring, I am looking at each of those one by one. And once I'm at the end, I actually just want to start over, and I don't want to have to click back each time I've looked at something.
Makes sense. We've got a few more questions that are, I feel like they're going to go down a little bit of a rabbit hole, maybe, with resetting not just filters, but parameter filters and things like that. So I'm gonna let's save those for offline, if you can answer in the chat, or if anyone has some suggestions or answers for those questions in the chat, feel free to post them. I am going to go ahead and go on, but thank you so much, Regina, for giving us this little intro to reset buttons. They are a magical thing once you figure out how to use them. So hopefully a few people will take away what you showed and try it further on their own dashboards. So, thanks.
Thank you.
So up next, we have Kevin Wee, who is a Chicago-based Tableau Public ambassador. That means he publishes a bunch of stuff on Tableau Public, and a lot of it has been recognized. And Kevin is passionate about data viz and UI and UX design. He's got a PhD in digital media evaluation, where he's actually studied the effect of visual design on the audience's perception of the presented content. And he currently works at Discover Financial Services. I know, not really higher ed, but come on, PhDs, they spend a lot of time in higher ed, so like he's got to pass. So at Discover, he's a senior BI analyst and provides creative visual solutions to tackle internal business partners' analytics problems. So Kevin strives to create visits that convey messages effectively, that are user-friendly, and that are aesthetically pleasing. And one of the ways that he has sort of experiments with this, because, you know, PhD, that requires a whole lot of experimentation, or at least study design, right? So one of the ways he does that is by using Figma, which is, it's a little like PowerPoint on steroids, but a whole lot more flexible and a whole lot easier to learn than something like, I don't know, the Adobe suite. Look at us, like I'm totally bashing every other product that's not Tableau in this meeting. Anyway, so Kevin has implemented what he's learned in his professional and personal visits. He's spoken at Tableau conferences on dashboard design tips, and he's also received a Vizzy. If you don't know what the Vizzies are, they're a community voted on awards program basically at Tableau conference. It's a whole thing. It's really cool to watch. But he received the 2023 Biggest Growth Vizzy Award. So congrats on that. And congrats on being a Tableau Public Ambassador. And welcome, Kevin.
Thank you very much. I'm going to share my screen now.
Okay.
Cool. And let me make sure that I open the sound and optimize for video clip. And I'm going to be sharing this one. Yep. Yeah, a lot. I mean, you can't see, but there are actually 3 screens in front of me. So I need to make sure that I'm sharing the right one and simultaneously turning on the chat so that I can see if there are any chat coming in. Okay. Give me 1 minute to settle.
So while
Cool.
you settle, I will tell a story from earlier today. I was at the Mass Higher Ed Tableau user group, and lo and behold, while we were letting this room open to people, guess what I had open on my screen because I was sharing the wrong screen? Slack. Not the slides, Slack. So always good to double check those.
Cool. Just a show of hand for those who have their camera open. Are you seeing my Tableau cross Figma slide?
Yep.
Awesome. Good.
It works.
Well, welcome to the Higher Ed Tableau user group. I am Kevin, and a little bit confused, maybe a little bit confused for those who wonder why is this person working in the financial services companies doing in higher ed tug. Fun facts: these higher ed tugs actually one of the first Tableau user groups that I have joined when I first learned Tableau in 2019. And it has helped me a lot in basically get my PhD to the final line. When I finished gather all of the data I used for my study, I had no idea what to do with them. And 4 years ago, I really thought using Excel and then creating a black and white grayscale heat map was the best visualization that I could do. So today kind of show y'all like how far I've become since I have joined a group, learn more from the community, and now trying to give back more. And given that people have been talking a lot about where I'm from and stuff like that, so I'm not going to spend any time on this slide. I'm just going to move on to the content. So as educators, it's important to set what the learning outcomes we want to achieve by the end of a session. So this is my anticipated learning outcome slide. By the end of this presentation, you should be able to list at least 3 ways to leverage Figma in Tableau dashboard design. You're supposed to be able to identify more online learning resources about this topic, and you're supposed to briefly describe the strengths and weaknesses of Figma when it's compared to PowerPoint. And note that Jeannie, I believe she would provide the slide decks and more materials as they're doing it now. So don't screenshot anything. Everything will be provided to you. So spend more effort in paying attention to the talk would be more valuable to you than to write things down or to keep screenshotting the material. So here we go. Before I show you the dashboard that used in this presentation, I'd like to give y'all and me some note. First of all, the dashboard that's presented today, it's built primarily to show the creative uses of Figma in dashboard design. It's not meant for any analytics purposes. So don't feel like you need to go later when I show the share the dashboard on the screen. Don't feel like you need to find insights from the dashboard. It's just built so that you can see the power of using both tools. Number 2, a well-designed dashboard should be easily used by the target users to answer analytics questions, not to bedazzle them. The dashboard that I showed today has some strong color, more saturated design, just so I can catch your attention in this, afternoon tea time. If you're building a dashboard for your own organization, chances are you'll be using some muted color, something that can help the users get through with the data easier. So with that said, now let's look at the dashboard that I will be presenting today. So this is the final product. It is a dashboard that I built for the Tableau conference. this year, you can see that this is one of the many tabs of a dashboard. I'm using the Superstore dataset, and I understand that there's no higher ed education related data here, but the message remain the same. So here you can see that it is a dashboard, and all the filters are placed on the top right white card like this. These are just the casual filters and parameters. And then here in this dashboard, this is one view of the dashboard. This is another view of the same dashboard, specifically about sales and profit. Oh, lost connection. I've opened this for too long.
That's what you get for being too prepared, Kevin.
Yeah, so this is another view for sales and profit. You can see that the designs are mainly the same. I'm just reorganizing the title. I'm just rewriting the title and reorganizing the white card. And then this is another view for profit. And this is the one for shipment. And this is the one for order records, which is just a giant table. So you can see that even though there are different content in different tabs, the design's highly consistent. I'm just using organizations of white cards to achieve a different layout design. That's the first thing that I like you to pay attention. The second thing that I like to pay attention are the icons or buttons on the screen, the round things. You can see that this is an icon. When I hover my cursor on the icon, it provides a definition of the y-axis. And then this is another icon. It tells you that it's actually a toggle switch. When you click on it, you can truncate the y-axis. You can keep the 0 or not keeping the 0 like this. And you can toggle between two states. That can be useful for analysts. Analysts, they have to pay attention to the day-to-day change of a metric, even though it doesn't fluctuate much. But for people that at the higher manager positions, they just pay attention to the big picture. So everybody's happy. You look at a big picture, and I look at day-to-day fluctuation like this. So that's the second thing that I like you to pay attention. The third thing that I like you to pay attention is the top right icon, this one. It's called an annotation icon. When I click on it, here's what's going to happen. A semi-transparent annotation overlay occurs at the very top of this dashboard, teaching new users or the existing users how to use the dashboard. So these are the things that can be accomplished using Figma, and I'll be talking about each of this very briefly in this 20 minutes. So now let's go back to my presentation. First of all, let's talk about what's Figma. For those who are not familiar with Figma, it's a web-based graphic design app, and that's mainly used in UX, UI business, user interface, and user experience businesses. And to me, it's easier to use than Adobe Illustrator, but way more powerful than PowerPoint. So it's kind of hitting the sweet spot of usability there. Later, I'll spend more time demonstrating this. And similar to Tableau, it has many community-based instructional videos and learning resources available online. So it's very easy for us to pick it up. You just need to be very smart and at drinking from a fire hose. And the app, like I said earlier, it's leveraged commonly by people that are working in application and website development. And if you think about it, all of the dashboards that we design, they are web-based applications. So if we put ourselves in that mindset, maybe using this software can help us in some way think about how we can better the UX of our dashboards. And last but not least, Figma has been adopted by many DataFam community members in data visualization practices. And today I'm going to show you how some of the examples of how to use both tools together. So here is a very oversimplification version of my practice in creating a dashboard. We start from getting a business request from our partners, and then we talk to them, identifying the problems, and then come up with prototypes, wrangling the data, and then creating the dashboard, eventually publishing the dashboard. So where can we start using Figma in this Tableau dashboard production cycle? First of all, it's the phase when we are designing prototypes. And these prototypes can be used for personal or group brainstorming. Later, I'm going to show you some examples. The second part that you can use Tableau and Figma together is when you're creating the dashboard. There's so many different ways that we can use it, but today, due to the time limit of this presentation, I will only briefly talk about the background image creation, icon libraries building, and the annotation overlay creation. Someone's asking, does Figma offer a free version? Yes, you can sign up on figma.com, a free account, and you can start using it. I've been using the free account for my personal projects, and I've been using it for 2 years, and I still haven't had to pay a penny. Cool. Now, first, let's talk about prototyping. For those who are not familiar with this term, creating a prototype means that you're creating a plan for your dashboard design. There are no data in this phase. You are just trying to sketch the design of the charts and the organizations of the charts on a canvas. It could be pen and paper, it could be on a whiteboard, or in this case, it could be done on Figma. And based on how realistic it looks compared to the real product, you would have low fidelity dashboard that just look like a piece of paper or something that people drawn that's high non-interactive, that's grayscale. You could also have something that's on the other end of the spectrum of fidelity or real degree of realistic. These dashboard could be something that's highly interactive. It would look like the real thing. So I'm going to show you the example here. I'm going to go to this link, and also the Jeannie has provided the link of all of these materials. Just check out the chat, you will find these examples. So this is a my example of a low fidelity Figma prototype of a Tableau dashboard. You can see that it is just text and rectangles, and they're all in grayscale, text and rectangles, and there's nothing to click, nothing to interact. But this gives you a sense of what could be on the screen and how crowded the screen would be if you fit all the metrics as required. If you start to incorporate your organization's color, branding, logo, or some design element in it, it will look something that look like this. This is what I consider a higher fidelity prototype. You would have your company's logo on the top left. You will start to put in real metrics or real name of the tabs that you know that are going to be there. You will start to put in the actual dashboard title, and it will look more close to the final product. And the thing about using Figma is you can create a prototype that is interactive. For example, here, when I hover over this yellow circle, you can see a design of a tooltip. Again, there are no real data here. This is just something that I made completely out of Figma. This is a tooltip functionality. This is also a tooltip functionality that mimicking the question mark icon in the real dashboard. And then this is also a tooltip. And the thing is, not just tooltip. On Figma, you can also create things that look like a multi-selection filter or a single selection filter, like this. This is a single selection filter. This is a multi-selection filter. This is all fake, just an image. Lisa asked, how long does it take you to create a high fidelity prototypes like this? The more you do it, the more examples you would have at your disposal, so the quicker it gets. I built this one from scratch, so it took me about 1 to 2 hours. But the thing is, the more you create this multi-selection and single selection examples, you will have a bigger and bigger library. Your process of creating this would be faster and faster. And another thing that you can do is really cool. It's a toggle switch mimicking like this. So all of this are accomplished in Figma. So this is an example of a Figma dashboard prototype. Now let's talk about the second applications of Figma in Tableau dashboard creation. That is the background image. So everything that you see on the right here, this is just a screenshot of the dashboard that I showed earlier. Everything on the left, this is one single image. It is one single image that I made on Figma. I just laid the bands and the line charts on it, and then the filters and parameters. So I created this on Figma. And the good thing about doing this is you can quickly create different organizations of the white cards by changing the organizations of the white cards and changing the subtitles. You can quickly create a template for different tabs of the dashboard. And the good thing about doing this is you can maintain the visual consistency of the dashboard or even different dashboards in the same organization. Kind of keep your team's branding going. And here's an example. What I did is I used Figma to create this template. This template, it looks complicated, but if you pay close attention to it, it is just logo, text, and rectangles, and only one rectangle with rounded edge, but that's not mandatory. The thing is, once I have this template, I could just change the subtitle, change the text to fit my need, and then reorganize the white cards to fit what I want in that specific tab. After that, I just export this in PNG and then load it in Tableau and then lay the chart on it like this. So if you go to by the way, this dashboard on my Tableau public, it is downloadable. You can download it and play with it. So what you're seeing here is I'm going to make it smaller. Boom, boom. So this is the dashboard, and I'm going to show you what I did. What I did was that I load the image in an empty dashboard, and then all you have to do is just to drop the charts in it and then reorganize them to look like this. And because you already have the white cards, you can use them as a guidance for the coordinates of different charts. So it's quite convenient, in my opinion. So, oops. Now let's talk about the third way to use Figma to build your own icon libraries. Ginny, if you can provide a link to my Tableau public in the chat, that would be appreciated. So earlier in the dashboard, you have seen the example of a hover to read definition icon and a toggle switch icon. These two icons, I didn't create them on my own. I used Figma existing icon libraries to, and then I just download them. So what you can do is you can go to Figma and try to find this free plugin. It's a free plugin called Iconify. What you have to do is you just go to the Iconify website, using this plugin, you just need to key in what kind of icon that you want. It will show you many different variations of the icon. And based on your organization's branding color, you can change the color and the size of the icon, and you could just export the icon as PNG. What happened is after gathering all of the icons that you need, you could just place them in your My Tableau repository folder in a Shapes custom folder. And the trick is to make sure that all of this look visually consistent. If you're using round buttons, all of them should be round. If you're using buttons that are with a specific line weight, they should all look consistent. So after gathering your own set of icons, placing them in this folder, so you could start leveraging them on Tableau. So I'm just going to show you one of this icon. This would be an easy one to show. So essentially, I'm using the shape file, and I just use this icon as the shape. And then I just place this one, I believe this one. I just place the definition that I want in the tooltip. And then now this is basically a one icon chart. So this is one of the quick way to leverage Figma in Tableau dashboard design. Now let's talk about the final example to create an annotation overlay. What you're seeing in the dashboard earlier, I'm gonna get out of here, bring back some memory. So earlier I showed you this semi-transparent overlay. And when I say semi-transparent, it meant that you can change the background charts like this. And when you open this, the numbers at the back would update. So this purple layer, it's actually not a solid image. It's a semi-transparent image. So what I did is I used Figma to create a template like this. It's basically a template with, again, semi-transparent layer, and then with the text box and then the connector lines. What I did was I went back to the dashboard. I took a screenshot of the dashboard. I load this screenshot back to Figma, and then I laid that semi-transparent overlay above it. And then I use it to start to, create different annotations on different parts of the dashboard, thinking how may I teach a new user to use the dashboard. And then what I did was I removed the background screenshot, and then I export this semi-transparent layer as an image file, and then import it back to Tableau. And then what I did was when you overlay them, make sure the coordinates match the dashboard coordinates completely, they would just fit like a glove. And then all you have to do is just use a show hide container to control the show and hide of that semi-transparent overlay. So that's what I did. Cool. So just a quick check of time. Jeannie, how much time that I have left?
At least a few minutes. I mean, we are pretty, just chill on that. Probably 15 at the max.
Cool. Yep. That would be more than enough. So now let's compare Figma and Microsoft PowerPoint. Later, I'm going to show you how to use both tools, but just some talking points. First of all, both tools are used. You can use both tools to create and edit text, shape files, color, and images. And you can also use both to align these visual elements. But the thing, in my opinion, that Figma is better than Tableau, its user interface is way simplistic, and it's a pixel-based software. And Tableau is also a pixel-based software. So when you have to match things, these two would be more compatible than Figma, than Tableau and PowerPoint. And also Figma has a pretty powerful grid and layout planning functionality. I'm going to show you more of that. And we could also address the elephant in the room. A lot of people still find Figma very intimidating to use, especially those who keep saying that, oh, you know what, I'm not a designer. Should I really touch a designer apps? And later I can show you that it's actually very easy to use. And there are a lot of materials that I have put on the internet to help you overcome the hurdle. So now let's get our hands dirty. Boom, 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 boom. Where did I put it? I think I put it here. Cool. So before I show you how to use Figma, let's come back and look at PowerPoint. So I put both the same thing on PowerPoint. So these are basically the building blocks on everything that I've just said. I'm just going to show you how to create some of this, and then we can see that my fingers has to click so many different things to make a simple shape. For example, now I'm going to create a rectangle. I need to click here, and I need to draw a rectangle. And then I need to, okay, let's make it white and then a border, that one. And then to make the, let's just say, to make the shade, I need to double click it and then come to here, I believe. Shadow. And then I'm going to do that one. I'm just going to do it before. So here, that's how I draw a square, a rectangle on PowerPoint. And how about a text box? So to create a text box, I need to click here and click shape, and then I want that color, that thing. And I need to click here again to find a way to enlarge my text. So you can see that I need to click a lot of different places, and I need to switch between different tabs just to make one thing happen. But let's redo that on Figma. I need to click rectangle, okay, to make a rectangle. And then all on the right, I just need to change the color to white. The stroke is the outline. Pick the color that I use the most. And then effects, I can just drop shadow. You know what? You can see that my hands are quite clean, like it's only on the top, and then everything happened on the right. And the thing about Figma is because it's very precisely controlled, you can key in the width and height of the object that you want. And if you want to create something fancier, like a rounded edge rectangles, you can do it like that as well. So it's the user interface very clean, so it's easier for you to create something that's complicated. And to create a text box, you just need to type the text, and then the font size, you can just pick the biggest one. And I'm going to do something called auto layout to have some padding. And then I'm going to fill the padding with some color like this. And here's the thing that you can do on Figma that you cannot do readily on Tableau is you can just very quickly modify the padding surrounding the text. So when you're creating the annotation overlay, this is something that you can leverage. On PowerPoint, it's harder to do this because if you go to the size of the object, let's see, like how do I even find the size of this object? Or the size of the objects here. But you can see that because it's not pixel based, it's kind of hard to estimate how big this thing would look on your Tableau dashboard. So other than the user interface, I want to show you what I mean by pixel-based measurements. So I'm going to use this prototype that I've built as an example. So what I did is on Figma, when you do like a shortcut key, Shift G, you can show and hide the grid. I'm not sure if you can see the grid. It's very light. Let me make the grid a little bit darker. 48. Can you see the grid? Can I have a show of hand if you can see the grid?
Yep, we can see it.
Cool. So Figma, it is a pixel-based software. So here you can see that I use 1308 times 800. So later when I'm building the Tableau dashboard, I can use the same dimension and I know that the image will fit like a glove. But on PowerPoint, you kind of have to estimate. You need to play with the ratio and then play hard that they will look the same. And the thing is, you cannot type in pixel. It's only by inches or centimeters. I believe in the latest versions of PowerPoint, you can do pixel, but not on Mac. And now let's look at grid. The thing about grid is once you have a grid, it's very easy for you to align things. And here's the powerful features of the grid on Figma. Figma, when you build a new visual elements, let's say I'm going to do ABC here. When you move things around the grid, it will snap on the grid. Like it would very easily click with the grids. This won't happen on PowerPoint. So on PowerPoint, the grid's just for reference. You can't hard align things on the grid as easily. But on Figma, you could do that. So that's one of the strongest features on Figma, in my opinion. Yes, I also wish the alignment clicking function would be on Tableau as well. And And here you can see that this is the background image template. I just align everything very hardly. And the thing is, on Figma, you can also summon additional grid line, like just dragging it from the left like this. Now you can just align things, or dragging it from the top to align things like this. On PowerPoint, you can have multiple grid line, but these grid lines, they are, for some reasons, their coordinates are compared to the center, not to the top right, top left. So making it a little bit hard for you to estimate where you want to place things. And to summon a new grid line, you need to do a lot of clicking like this. It's just the user interface is not as quick. The other thing I like to say about it's layer control. When you're creating something that's as complicated as this, where it has a screenshot at the back and has several items at the front, I'm going to turn off the grid now. On Figma, it allows you to lock an image so that you can mess with other items without worrying that you may move the items at the back. And you can also show and hide the background image like this on demand real quick. On PowerPoint, we know that there's no way for you to show or hide a specific layer. And also, let's say I want to place more text box on this example. I click text box, and when I click on here, it would automatically go to the purple rectangles. It won't create a new text box for you. So what you have to do is to go to zoom out a little bit, click the text box, go to the outside, and then type what you want, and then bring it back here. Just a lot of steps to accomplish the same thing. Unlike on Figma, you can do that quite readily, like this, because I have locked the background image, I've locked the purple layer, I've locked the screenshot. So now I can just very quickly move things around. How I can just type things, and then I can quickly create field. I'm gonna make something. I can quickly create another text box like this. And because I have the grid, you can quickly Control D to create more text like this. So these are just like a very, very short example of what Figma could do, how Figma could outperform PowerPoint. So these are the examples. So here are some resources for you to learn Figma in the context of Tableau dashboard production. Later, Jeannie, if you could please share the link of the slide deck again. I've put hyperlink in each of this image, and you can just click through them and watch this material. I'd like to shout out to Autumn. She has the whole series of YouTube video teaching you how to do prototyping for a Tableau dashboard. They're on the low fidelity end, but it's as much as useful as they could be. And I personally also have several Tableau user group videos where I teach people how to create the background image and the annotation layers. And here are some inspirations, resources that you may find useful. If you go to Tableau Public, the business dashboard example, you would find a lot of dashboard. Actually, you can tell that some of them are built using Figma. So these can give you some ideas of how to prototype your own dashboard design. You can also go to portfolio website such as Behance. When you type in business dashboard, you can see a lot of very non-Tableau, but very useful design for business dashboard development. And if you go to my website, kevinwee.com, and look for the latest blog, I have all of this materials for you to pick up how to use Figma in the context of Tableau dashboard production. So with this said, here are the takeaways. First of all, leveraging Figma would, to me, accelerates the dashboard productions and enhances its functionality. And you can use Figma in prototyping, background image, icons, and annotation layers building. And Figma is clearly more powerful than PowerPoint in terms of many design functionalities, but it could be intimidating to adopt. And you have been given all the links to be successful in using both tools in dashboard production. And this demonstration should be the beginning for you to explore the potential of Figma in Tableau dashboard design. And I encourage you to explore with them, play with them, and share the result with all of us. So with that, I'd like to thank Jeannie for inviting me to the presentation. Thank all of these like visionaries and ambassadors for putting their learning materials on the internet so that I could learn from them. And I'd like to thank Discover Credit BI team for adopting the practice that I've just said, and all of you for the discussions and support. So thank you. Let's see. Cool.
Thank you, Kevin. I think there are some questions in the chat. Let me just scroll up a little. Actually, Roshni, I know you had asked some of them. Where did you leave off? There's so much. There's so much in the chat. People are really digging this.
Okay, I think Ivan has one. When you're trying to convey a new idea or data story to your stakeholders team through a visualization like yours, what do you find is your biggest roadblock? How would you try to overcome it? To me, the biggest roadblock would be they want the scope creep. People want everything to be on their dashboard. And sometimes we need to persuade them that they don't need 20 filters. Some of the filters are essentially the same thing, just slightly different. So maybe we can take out more filters, take out more columns than they thought. So the negotiations of the scope is always the biggest hurdle for me. And I think using a prototype could help because now they could see how crowded the dashboard would be if we put 20 filters or 10 charts in the same tab. So I hope that answered your question.
I also see that Keith put his in the chat again. Are you creating the chart images in Figma as well as your high fidelity prototypes?
Yes. Everything that you have seen on the prototypes, they are made completely on Figma. It's like building charts using lines and bars, but without any numbers on it. You just literally build them, and the more you build them, the more examples you can use for future projects. So it's kind of like the first time is a little bit painful, but then it gets easier and easier.
Do other people on your team have access to your Figma folders?
Yes. Our team has a team. Well, let me give you an example. Let me give you a secret. Our company is using Figma for our own app development. Like if you have a Discover credit card, if you go to Discover credit card app, that app's designed using Figma. So we have our own Figma license, and we can share materials across the team, even with other teams.
And then there's one more. Have you done any usability testing with stakeholders before sending out a final dashboard?
I wouldn't say usability test. We haven't been doing usability testing in a way that's like a double blind, like we're not saying anything and they're not knowing us. The thing about the collaboration between business partners and us in the same, all of us in the same company is we're kind of like buddies already. We've known each other's. We're sitting like 2 rows from each other. So if they don't know something, they're very honest in telling us that. And if we want to tell them some trick in using the dashboard, we will convey that quite readily. So we're not doing usability testing because that wouldn't be subjective, but we have open discussions on, let me demonstrate how this dashboard could be used to you in 5 minutes. And then you can ask me whatever that you want. If you find anything that's confusing, we can talk about how to make those changes.
Wonderful. If I missed any questions, feel free to put them in the chat. Kevin, if you have time, maybe you can answer them in the chat as well. While we move on to our wrap-up slide, which is please fill out our survey and tell us what you thought about today's meeting. I think we had 3 phenomenal people speaking today. And if you want to be one of those people in the future, you can also fill out our interest form about presenting, which is at the bottom of this page. And while you're at it, you can go ahead and sign up for next month's meeting on October 17th, where we are going to meet a community member, Preeti Lodha from UMass, and then have tips and tricks with Brian Vansil from the University of Kansas. And we're going to learn about zip codes and distances with Nathan Hodges from Western Carolina. It's going to be jam-packed and awesome, as it always is.